So yesterday we were coming up with arguments. I'll switch the lights back here so we can see a little bit better, and we can make that larger too. We were coming up with arguments as to what attitude Steinbeck would be trying to convey to the readers. The ones that we came up with yesterday were absolutely fine. They were well done, well crafted. Keep in mind that you are not relegated to only using these. You can certainly come up with your own. And I would like you to come up with your own, but you were seeing at least the possibilities, the ways in which this was going. And then we took a look at the diddle, so the diction, imagery details, figurative language, and then syntax. I know we were kind of cutting close with time here at the end, so figurative language, there are certainly more than 6 that you would be able to use. So you are not limited to those. So one of the things that people were kind of noticing when you go back and reread chapter 5, because you read it, well, in some cases a long time ago, in some cases maybe last week, but when you read it again after looking at the book, people are starting to notice some of the ideas kind of present itself throughout the course, start in chapter 5, and they keep coming up over and over and over again. So for like another example of figurative language, anybody remember what you would call if a certain concept, idea, even symbol keeps recurring throughout the course of the book? I'm thinking A Tale of Two Cities, this might have popped up with like color imagery and stuff. Sam? Yeah, motif would be one. So motif tends to be pretty nice when it comes to lengthier books because there's a lot of time for stuff to keep showing up over and over again. So not trying to say, hey, I hope you pick motif, but you're not limited to just these ones that we were writing down frantically yesterday. Anybody have any questions, since it was towards the end of the period that we were finishing this up, so far as to what those various rhetorical devices would be, starting with diction up at the top, imagery details working its way through syntax. Diction, you're looking at individual words. Syntax, because sometimes people run into an issue of telling the difference, you're looking at the actual structure of the sentence. So multiple words, multiple sentences. There might be some words in some sentences that repeat quite a bit. Like you might look at the idea of the repetition, wait till next year when maybe the crops will grow and it keeps coming up over and over and over again. If you're looking at the repetition of it, that's going to put it more in the syntax category as opposed to the individual word choice with the diction. But everyone okay? If you have any chance of success for this essay assignment, what sentence do you need to nail? It's got to be the thesis statement, okay? Now, you can have a really good thesis statement, it can still fall apart. You could have a so-so thesis statement and it could still recover, but if you have the thesis statement in a good spot, you'll be good to go. Robert, how you feeling? I know I asked you at the beginning of class. You said good.
Yeah, I'm okay.
You might have been lying. I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay, I hope you're okay. Tired yet?
yeah. It was sad this morning.
Okay, I'm sorry. Me too. She's yawning. Now you're going to yawn. And then Ellie's going to yawn and say cinnamon. Vince, how you doing? You're great. Yeah, lying through your teeth. Wayne, are you okay? You're not like tired? Worn out? I asked fourth period. Student said he was tired, worn out. I said, what are you going to do? Go to the gym? That seems silly. That would make me more tired and worn out. If I'm tired and worn out, I want to recuperate. I'm going to the spa. And if I want to write a thesis statement, I'm also going to go to the spa because S and P and A, it's a nice little math problem. You can share it with Mrs. Wroblewski if you want. See what her reaction is. You do those things, you have thesis statement. And you have a good thesis statement. You get a smiley face next to it.
Okay, so there wasn't going to all of that.
Yep. You probably still have a question that going on in your head. Well, you might have multiple questions, but I'm hoping everyone has at least maybe 3 questions going off in their head.
What does spa stand
That's good. Any ideas? Greta's got an idea.
strategy, purpose, environment?
I think that's a good idea. It's amazing what happens when you look at the information in front of you. This is a surefire way to put together a pretty straightforward. I don't mean simple in the sense as like not intellectual or anything like that, but a very simple, concise, effective thesis statement anytime you're doing rhetorical analysis. This does not work for every type of writing assignment, only works for rhetorical analysis, but your next several writing assignments are rhetorical analysis, so it will work for that. Where we start, and kind of similar to how we were looking at the prompt, you need to start with the argument. Well, what is the argument? Your argument is, and you are still crafting an argument because your argument is explaining what you think Steinbeck's trying to get across throughout his text. And so you look at the page where we were coming up with various ideas or arguments, and we came up with all of these. Anybody have an argument and they think would be good for us to make a sample thesis statement for, whether it be something that we already put up on the board or something that you're thinking of that would be good? Vince?
Anger.
Okay.
Against the tractor drivers.
Against the tractor drivers? I think that one could definitely go in some, where are we at? So when we were looking here with the injustice, I think these would certainly work. I have a concern if the tractor drivers are your thesis statement.
What did you say?
What would my concern be? Well, no, you need to have something, because you can't just go,
You can't get enough examples for that?
You're-
Since it's only 5?
you're probably coming straight from chapter 5. So rather than a Grapes of Wrath essay, you're going to have a chapter 5 essay, which isn't going to work because it's a small sliver. Now, you could certainly still use the tractor drivers as some examples. Tractor drivers are an extension of,
Authority.
the authority, the business. So we might be looking at the anger of the authorities' mistreatment of the migrants, or you could say Okies. If you do say Okies, keep in mind you're only now talking about people from Oklahoma, so you can't, include other states as well. But the whole idea about the injustice towards them, want to take a look at? All right. So we could go with the mistreatment of the migrants. Do you want authority in there? Doesn't matter. If you go with authority, we have to make sure they're authority figures. If you go with mistreatment, you don't necessarily have to be in a position of power.
Just maybe stay with this.
Okay, so the mistreatment of the migrants. What word did we not use that he wanted to? Because initially you were saying anger. I'm not going to put anger in there because I don't think we need to. What does mistreatment insinuate? Even if it's not anger, it's not good. You could do mistreatment. Some people might want to do the unfair treatment, and certainly you would know that that's not something that he would be in favor of. So having that word mistreatment or unfair treatment, I think it takes care of what we need. Strategies, those are going to be the rhetorical devices, so the things coming from the diddles list that we were making. Now, I'm not asking you for specific examples, so don't worry about it, but what would be some strategies that you could see yourself using, whether it be for your own essay or if you end up going with an argument similar to this one? And you really can't get this wrong. You can, but it's pretty hard.
Details.
You did not get it wrong. Good job. So you want to do details? Megan, any you want to do? I'm sorry? Imagery? Sure. Keep in mind, the only way that you can really get it wrong would be if you chose which one of these 5. Sam? The figurative language. Now you can pick similes, you can pick irony, you can pick motif if you want. Figurative language in itself is just too general. Alright, so I have no problem with you going with metaphor, allusion, hyperbole, but your paragraph would be about just one of those devices. You're not going to have simile, irony, motif all together in the same paragraph. It's just too haphazard going in too many directions. So figurative language is fine, but you just have to pick one. The other one, I'm going to kind of force feed this one to you. You have to use, yellow highlighter. Not meaning you have to use for your essay, but I want to use it for this example. Any guesses? Not details, but yes. We're not a firing squad, it's okay. I will be slightly upset, maybe moderately upset, if you use diction. Meredith, are you going, crap? I wanted to use that one. Yeah. It's a good question. What's your question? Well, what's diction mean?
Usage, construction, sentences.
Well, the sentences are going to be the syntax, but yeah, the word choice itself, the individual word choice. So in a way, you're kind of saying Steinbeck uses words to prove his argument. And the chuckle is, you have to use words, it's a book. Now, what can we do to make this workable so Meredith and others can use it? We can describe it. So what type of diction? So what kind of word would you put in front of diction? Part of speech-wise, you would put, since you're describing, adjective. There we go. You're going to put an adjective. Now, you want to make sure that the type of adjective you use is going to align with the mistreatment, that would be taking place. Some terms that have come up so far have been like critical diction, harsh diction, antagonistic diction, demeaning diction. All of those things would be fine because now there's a specific type of word. The ones I would want you to stay away from, good, bad, powerful, because they don't really mean anything. Strong, it doesn't really mean anything so far as the argument itself. But if you had something like critical diction, chances are we're going to have words that are going to be criticizing the mistreatment. Demeaning diction would probably be some terms that might be demeaning to the migrants that will be demonstrating how they are being mistreated. So I have no qualms with you using diction. I just want to make sure that you have an adjective in front of it so that we know what type of word choice you are using. Okay? Aubrey, this has proven to be a difficult task for some people. I have faith. My thesis statement is written in red. Can you please read it from top to bottom? I'll even put a period down there.
Details imagery in demeaning diction, the mistreatment of the migrants.
Okay, what's the problem with our sentence? You were uncomfortable, which is fine. Sam?
There's no verb.
There is not a verb. We need a verb. Well, guess what? For purpose, you are using a one-word verb. Now, there is certainly a one-word verb that I want you to avoid at all costs. Number 33, Greta, show. And don't substitute demonstrate because that's equally as poor. It means basically the same thing. But what would be one-word verbs, and there are multiple, that we could put in here that would link those two together? Sam, and then Megan will go to you.
Proves.
Proves, okay. Megan?
Conveys.
Conveys. What else?
Reveal.
Reveal? Sure. Is that a hand? Okay. Pardon? Explain?
Expose,
Expose? Joey?
express.
Express? The EXP words tend to pop up in here though. And we could kind of keep going. Well, I won't write them, but run out of room. That's language enrichment, people. Okay. Publicize. Explicate came up earlier. Publicize is one. That some folks were working. So if you take one of those now, details, imagery, and demeaning diction reveal the mistreatment of the migrants. Now we have a clear, straightforward thesis statement. I'll highlight it since it gets a little convoluted here. Depending on what your argument is, your purposes can change. We had a similar argument earlier in the day, and someone used the word propose, which can be a very effective purpose. What's the problem with propose in this case, though?
Kind of like just giving an idea of something.
And in a lot of cases, I think if you propose something, you tend to kind of endorse it. or promote it. And they didn't mean that, but I think it was more of communicating the idea. But details, imagery, and demeaning diction, justify the mistreatment of migrants or endorse. You don't want that message to be coming across because that's not what he's doing. Now, in some cases, you do want that. I don't remember if it was, I don't think it was our class, but yesterday someone was bringing up where Steinbeck is promoting socialism. So that could make sense where you do promote, endorse, justify, a socialistic community or society or whatnot. So depending on the argument, your purposes could change. But one of the things that we'll focus on throughout the year is coming up with purposes better than show and demonstrate. Sometimes illustrate, is going to work. But I have no problems with details, imagery, and demeaning diction reveal the mistreatment of migrants. There's no need to add anything to that sentence. Sometimes people want to put phrases in the beginning. In his book, John Steinbeck uses. You don't need to do that. Why don't I need to mention Steinbeck in this thesis?
It's probably a prompt, so it should have already been introduced.
Chances are, yeah, it probably has already been introduced. Similar. Yeah, most introductory paragraphs, you have an attention grabber, you transition into the author of the work, you give some background, boom, now comes the thesis statement. That's already been done. Steinbeck's name is going to show up throughout the course of the essay, whether you plan on using it a whole lot or not. There's no reason just to add it here. This is a simple, concise. That does not mean simplistic. Simplistic and simple are two different things. This is direct, straightforward. If your thesis statement becomes very lengthy, the reader can kind of lose track of the argument you're trying to get across. So having something that is concise, direct can be extremely effective. I have no problem if everyone were to use this same format, parallel structure, kind of for your thesis statements. I want all of you to use this kind of format for your thesis statements because then they're not going to lose track of what you're trying to get across. If I were to put Steinbeck uses, I just add two words, Steinbeck uses, details, imagery, demeaning diction. What is now the subject of my sentence? Steinbeck. If he's the subject of my thesis statement, that also means he has now become the subject of my whole entire essay, which I don't want to have happen because it's the words, the strategies that he is using that I want to be the focal point. Structurally, what can I also probably insinuate or assume, infer about the structure or organization of the essay based on this thesis? I can start to figure some things out about it. Shannon? Yep, the way this is set up, that's my first, that's my second, and that would be my third. So whatever order you establish, you want to make sure you keep that order consistent throughout. And it doesn't really matter what order you go in. Anyone have any ideas as to why you would order the paragraphs the way that you do? Besides going, this is the order I put them in my thesis, like any ideas to how you might want to set it up, Pam?
The strongest argument should be last.
What if all my arguments are strong? As an AP, we only write strong arguments. We kick the weak to the side. That's what they're trying to do. No, you're right. Generally, the strongest argument people will put at the end. And for an AP reader, unlike an exam, they like to see an argument develop and gain momentum as opposed to fizzle. So if you do notice that, hey, my demeaning diction is my best paragraph, it probably does make sense to put it towards the end. That could be a way to think about it. Joey, we're going to say something else?
Same thing.
Okay. Any other ways in which you might? Just moving, chicken wing. I'm making this up, so don't take these as being, honest to goodness truths. But let's say that my examples for details are coming from page 58, 194, 208. Imagery is 117, 328, 596. 94, 417, 608. I didn't put a whole lot of thought in those numbers, so don't read too much into it. What order would you go in? So would you, now we got 9 numbers, which don't go in.
So for details, you would go like 58, 194.
So within the paragraph.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that generally. That there might be some instances where that's not the case, so we could talk about it. Would you still put details as your first example, like your first paragraph based with those page numbers?
Yes. Probably.
I didn't mean to do it this way, but I would probably keep it in the order that it's currently in. Now you make a good point about within the paragraph itself, it would make sense to go in that order. Can you think of any exceptions based on the structure of the book? Doesn't happen a whole lot, but I think with this book, there might be a reason you'd go differently.
Does it have to do with like the alternating chapter?
Uh huh. Were you thinking?
I was gonna say the difference between the narrative and expository.
And obviously, you're not. We want to have a fairly equal grouping of them. But if, for say the details, since it's first, if I have 2 Jode examples, I'll probably put those 2 examples together, 58 and 208. So I'm still talking about Jode, and then I can go back to the other example. So there could be some reasons why some things would switch a little bit. But for the most part, you're right. Chronological order would be the way you want to go. So again, not that you know exactly what your argument is going to be yet, but do we understand how that SPA gets put together, how that thesis statement gets put together? Keep in mind, in your course syllabus, it's page 22, 21, 22, there is that analysis essay outline. This is a reference source that you can use. So it mentions what you would want to have in your introduction, attention grabber, 2 to 3 sentences. That transition sentence, mention the title and the author, give some quick background about the story, about the novel, and then you get into your argument. Last year, I think you, a lot of the times, were doing thesis statements and what other sentence after it? Begin with an F, I think. Sam's looking at me like, no, we didn't. Strange
We
man.
did.
I think you did focus statements as well. Thesis was your argument, focus was mentioning then the subject, the areas that you were going to look at. Notice that with doing a SPA, that's not necessary because the strategies have already taken care of the focus part. All right, so you don't have to go in, and this happens when Tom does this, and when Ma does that, and in this one expository chapter. Other thing to keep in mind, this selection of page numbers is good. I'd be happy with that. If I were to come across an essay, whether I'm writing or reading, and all right, 2 more. I have a serious concern. Brett, any idea what my concern is?
Maybe that they didn't read the entire book.
Yeah, I'm wondering how far you really got. I mean, you could even say, okay. 333. You're still about halfway. You can't cover the whole book. I know you can't cover the whole book, but we would expect that if these are devices that Steinbeck's using to get his point across, he's probably doing it throughout the course of the whole book. Some of you are going to be inclined to use what chapter? Chapter 5. And I have no problem with you using chapter 5, but you can't have like 3, 4 examples coming from the same chapter when you're dealing with like a 29 chapter book. So make sure that, 30 chapter book. So make sure you're aware that you are trying to cover as much of the book as you possibly can. And again, with rough drafts, this would be a way to go, Joey, it looks like you might need to add some more from this part. Erica, this looks good, but I kind of rearranged the order of the examples to kind of better get the chronology of the book. So worry about finding your examples argument for Wednesday of next week, and then we can make sure that it aligns with everything that we need to do. But you should be looking at argument, thinking about the diddles, and then go strategy, purpose, argument. You're going to be in good shape. Tomorrow, we're going to look at chapter 5, so if you have the book with you. Tomorrow, Grapes of Wrath. Friday is going to be Bedford Reader. We're going to do a diddles and a spa for chapter 5. So you just get more practice with it, so you can therefore extrapolate that to the whole book in itself. I don't know why the bell didn't ring yet. Wasn't it ringing 42? 48. Be on. You eat your lunch.
Maybe like one slide.
Something like that, 48. Yeah. Go to lunch. I'm making that call. There it is.